So, howdy, this is Nev and Tammy Slade here in the Mojave Desert in our new sustainable or just our green built house. And it's been a long time coming that we would tell the story. And we really are excited to tell the story because we want to say thank you to all the people and family that have helped us. And we just think it's important. And we basically don't want you guys to screw up as badly as we did. I have the most amazing wife, and she stuck through with me. She's known by the local community as the pioneer woman. And we've done a lot of things kind of backwards, but I think they were for all the right reasons. And so the whole thing started, I think, when I teach sustainability, and I can use it in every sentence, and I love it, and I really love my job as a professor at one of the local colleges. And I decided, I think, to live green and to sort of do what we talk about in the classes. And so part of the big piece was to come out here, pick this beautiful piece of desert. I found it on my bicycle one day, and Tammy will tell you exactly where things went from there, but find this beautiful piece of desert and to come out here and build a green lifestyle for ourselves and kind of rethink things.
Oh, am I going now? Oh, sorry. Okay. Nev was always riding his mountain bike all over the place, and he was always looking for real estate. He's always been interested in land, and so he was always riding his bike and looking for spots, I think. And this idea had come for him for a while that he really wanted to build a straw bale house because we'd seen them in magazines and books, and he'd been teaching about that stuff. And so he rode his bike, and he said he found this great piece of property, and we came out here, and I was thinking, great, there's a house right up there on the hill. Why don't we just buy the house? And so, but no, it wasn't for sale. And actually it had been for sale, but somebody bought it. So then Nev decided that, we would instead build the house. I wasn't exactly all gung-ho for it. In fact, I was really loving my house. I didn't really want to do this, but okay.
The first stage was for us to make something livable out here. So we got one of those shipping containers. They're awesome. They're well built. And we put it out here. It was a bit of a trick getting it out here because we really just have tracks out here in this little valley. Not very far from town, but incredibly remote in the sense that it's very quiet and it's just some tracks coming and you have to get across the railroad and things like that. So we set up the container. It was a great place to lock things up. Then we found an old Airstream. In fact, Tammy's great friend, Danny, we got it from her family. Airstream, an old Airstream trailer, tons of character. And the idea is there you'd have all the basic amenities, refrigerator and hopefully hot water and a shower and all that kind of stuff. And we moved that in next to the container and then found some old corrugated iron, some old iron that was rusted, and we built a lean-to and an outdoor kitchen. And at that time, the great joke was that we actually had running water because I installed an old tank and ran a hose out to it, and you could actually turn on running water. Well, it turns out that the concept was good, but I think maybe we took that a little bit far, and then later days we actually try to live in that permanently rather than living in our other house in Apple Valley and just coming out here for a few days at a time. How well did that first stage work? You tell the story.
It was awful. It was the horrible time for me. We moved out and the weather was terrible. The Airstream, it was, we did have cold water. We had water. Of course, it's winter, so things can freeze. We had redone all the wiring and everything in the trailer, but Nev turned the heater on the first night, and I said, "You're never turning that on again. We're going to die in here." So we lived in the Airstream, but it was super windy and it was miserable. And then the critters started coming. We just couldn't seem to get them out. Every time I'd come home, they'd chew through my Tupperware. They'd chew through something. One day we came home. We'd been gone. I came home, and there were 3 holes in the screen, 3 different screens. The squirrels had chewed their way out. And so I was really ready for a nervous breakdown at that point. In fact, my mom was visiting, and she was asleep she was sleeping in the front of the trailer, and I had set a trap, and I jumped up so excited one night because I actually got one of the critters, and she still tells that story because it was so funny.
The way I remember that, these wood rats, they're a very pretty rat, if you can imagine a rat, with big ears and big eyes, and we were having a particularly bad day of them, and we went to bed, and we'd set the trap, and Tammy must have been waiting for it to catch one because we heard this loud clop, and then Tammy jumped out of the bed with a loud scream of "Yeah!" and it scared the heck out of me. But it kind of got in our head there for a while, and that eventually drove us out, and we moved back to our very nice, comfortable house in town, and regrouped until Neville got his next bout of craziness and a little bit of false courage, maybe. So I'd say the second stage was basically, of course these go into each other, but conceptualizing the design. I'd started off with a really small, simple little 700 square foot house, straw bale, a really simple roof line, and looking back, that really wasn't the greatest idea for Tammy. Her gift is to be hospitable to people, and we have lots of family gatherings out here and community groups, and that's our goal, to bring people out here and share this beautiful desert with them. And so was to design it, and we had some friends from another friend at the college design it, and a young architect friend of ours, Houston Drum, that finished it. And it just grew, and it grew to 2,000 square feet, which is not huge, but it's still a simple design. And of course, as we mentioned, it uses straw bales. It's a barn structure with I-beams that hold up the roof so that the straw bales can't be weight bearing. That's not allowed in California under California code. And then everything in it is recycling and reusing. And that's kind of a funny story because we really became the local trash collectors. We'd have people call us up, "Hey, we got these old chairs, would you like that?" And I remember our two boys were pretty concerned that that's all we were doing is collecting a bunch of trash. But as we look around now, we found places for all of that stuff, and we'd tell them, well, we have a purpose for that. I don't think they believed us in each little piece of trash that they picked up across the desert. We would literally pick up pieces of old wood in the desert. At one stage, I even picked up some old couches, and in one of the workshops we had on sustainability for kids, they actually turned that into a little cold frame for keeping plants alive in the winter. So really done a lot of recycling, reuse. Yeah, so it's been an interesting process. I think of it as being a 7-year process, but it's actually a little bit longer than that. And you just reach certain points when you just have had enough. And for me, it was always breaking through the building challenges. How do you do this? How do you put this wood floor down? And that kind of, how do you connect the straw bales to the metal? How do you do the electrical? And it's interesting because we have a lot of friends in the community that are builders, and they didn't know, and at that time I think they were a little bit terrified. And so my times of almost giving up would be at those times, but I could never share them with Tammy because I was the guy that had thought up this crazy idea in the first place. So we would just find something, way to do it, or somebody would come up out of the blue, almost miraculously some of the time, and say, "Hey, why don't you try that?" Or "I'll come out and help you." And that's been the best part of just finding these amazing friends that have come and helped us with it, and family. And so, Tammy, where have been your breaking points? I know being the pioneer woman in this crowd, and just the most amazing partner through it. I can think of some.
Well, there's been a number of them. I think when we came out and the animals infested the place, that was really hard for me. Having no hot water or electricity.
That was a bad one.
Actually, I think Nev's closest time to having a nervous breakdown was when the first well we dug was dry. And I don't know if other guys have this problem, but my dad had always said, you always want to pump for water first and make sure you have a well. And of course, we didn't do that. We had our water brought in for a long time.
We did find water eventually, 450 feet
450
down.
feet.
And thanks to a driller who was amazingly helpful.
But we were wondering if that, and we already had the structure, I think, the metal frame building up when we did that. So best advice is always check that you have water first before you do any building. And so thanks, Dad, for that advice.
And if the city provides it and you can just turn on the faucet or the tap,
all the better.
That's not a bad idea. You don't have to reinvent everything.
Yeah, and we actually still have to pump it with a generator, which is a kind of a pain. So that's not so fun.
You have to drag a 300-pound generator up the hill.
Yeah, I don't like that so much.
Well, that just kicked us into action. We had been trying to do things a little slowly and not disrupt our lives too much, but that wasn't working too well anyway. So we jumped into the last stage, was to get the windows in, get all the straw bale done, finish the plastering on the outside and the inside, and actually be able to live in it. And that's really been the last 2, maybe 3 years. And so as we sit here today, it's just unbelievable, because all we've got left to do is, again, things we should have done way back, which is to finally fix the solar and make sure it has the right capacity and get that done, and a little bit more natural plastering and a little bit electrical work, and we can actually call for a final. And I'm just quite astounded, and I just sit here in awe, wondering how the heck that even happened.
The highlights, there's a lot of highlights. I think the highlights are really all the people that helped us, and working with people and learning that I could live like that if I had to, and that I've been adaptable in so many ways, and I can put together a meal for a number of people with barely anything. We've fed a lot of people. It was funny, I was with my cousin last weekend, she was talking about being on a dude ranch and how, the women would do breakfast and then go work, and lunch and work, and dinner and work, and I was doing that. I was providing meals for everybody that was working here the whole time, and it was a lot of work, but it just happened. I don't know actually how it happened, but now I can do it in the luxury of having a completed kitchen that has everything I need, and it's really a lot of fun.
I wanted to provide for the way you really deserve it.
Yeah.
And she can swing a hammer and use a skill saw and lift more weight than anybody should be even allowed to touch. For me, the highlight now is just to enjoy it. And you can I love to sit in the morning and look out over this beautiful valley on the Mojave Desert and just think about and look at the pieces we've built. You've got such ownership when you do it this way. It's not just a mortgage payment or something that somebody else did for you, but you remember how that cabinet was built or where that particular window came from, literally given to you by some friend that gave you that old piece of beat up window to put in the house. And it's just a feeling of ownership, and it's the most amazing house to actually live in.
And that is a really cool part, when people come and they go, wow, that was mine. That was in my house. Or I feel so at home here because it has so many of my things that I used to have that I was getting rid of. It's really been interesting, that part. And just being able to have people here and share it with other people is, now that it's done, we can enjoy it and sit out on the balcony in an just amazing quiet and just enjoy it and really share it with others. And that's the best part.
And then, because in closing on Mr. Sustainability, we want to continue sharing it with people in terms of the learning and having more workshops as we go along here, so people can hopefully be inspired to do something like this themselves and not listen too much to Tammy's horror stories. They wouldn't be married to me, so they'd be safe, so it can all work.
But the stories are what make really, would I do it again? Probably not. But do I take back any of the experiences that we've been through? No, because I think it had made us stronger and it's made us grow closer. And I think it's been a real testimony to other people what you can get through if you really are committed and willing to sacrifice. And that's what it takes.
So you'd still get married to me too?
Yeah, I'd still get married to you.